Hello princesses! Today I'm going to be talking about the EX1 Invisiwear Liquid Foundation. I actually picked this up when I was in London. It is either from like a Boots store or one of the other like drugstore, like things like a Superdrug maybe that I was in. I literally can't remember, there were like two side by side. And I got this from one of them because it's been on my wish list for ages, but back when I was actually looking for it, I couldn't find anywhere that shipped to New Zealand that wasn't really expensive. Now that I actually have it, of course, ASOS is actually stocking them. So if you're an international buyer, you can get this off ASOS, which is really convenient. So EX1 is a brand that specifically does foundations for yellow undertones. So obviously I was really interested in trying these out because I have yellow undertones. I find it really difficult to find foundation shade matches because my perfect shade is NARS Sheer Glow in Siberia, and it's like banana yellow, and that's what looks best on my skin tone. I do have olive toned skin. I'm just really quite pale because I stay out of the sunlight, but I do tan quite easily. So I'm a little bit more tan than I normally would be, especially my hands at the moment. So this actually works quite well because it's not as light as I would prefer, but it works at the moment color-wise. So I am wearing it, of course, right now. It's slightly off in tone. I think that it's a bit more peachy than it is yellow, but that's my personal thoughts. The shades don't actually have like descriptions by them. They just show a model wearing it, and like I don't think that the model particularly looks that yellow. I feel like the number 2 shade looks like it would have been better on my skin, but when I swatched them in store because they had testers, the number 2 shade was way too dark. Like even for my tanned skin it was like much darker, so I ended up going with shade number 1 because of that reason. There's not really that much point in having a really dark shade even if it is the right tone, because half the time when I lighten them up with foundation mixes it just doesn't go well for me. So yeah. So the product description says, a lightweight and luminous liquid base formulated with light diffusers to unify skin tone and effortlessly cover imperfections. Specifically designed true color pigments work perfectly with your skin's natural tones in an ultra blendable formula. So the packaging of this foundation is really pretty, but it is a little bit dodgy. I find the pump is really hard to use. It's just a little bit rackety and very cheap. It is an airless pump, meaning that the pump pushes the product up from the bottom, so I should be able to use almost all of the foundation entirely, which is really good. The texture of the foundation is very unusual. It's quite a thick, creamy formula, so I do find it a little bit hard to spread out sometimes. I have the shade 1.0, which is the lighter shade in the range. It's actually a pretty good colour. It's a little bit on the peachy side, as pretty much every single foundation is, so it doesn't look quite as yellow as NARS Sheer Glow in Siberia, but it's not a bad colour really. So I'm going to pump one pump out onto my hand, and then if I need more I can go back in and get more, but usually I don't need more than one pump. And I'm going to be using a cushion puff to apply this. I find that the best way to apply this is with a cushion puff or a damp beauty blender. I'm just really lazy and I don't want to go up and get out of my room and dampen the beauty blender, so cushion puffs are the way to go. With a cushion puff it's important to just pat the product onto your skin rather than sort of like dragging and blending. Just use it like you would a beauty blender, except it's flat and it's got a little place for your fingers to go. So this foundation is fairly easy to apply as long as you're using the right base. I find that it works really awfully with my Etude House sunscreen, so I'm not wearing the Etude House sunscreen today. It provides pretty light coverage, so you can still see around my jaw, but you can see pretty much all of the acne scarring, and you can see all of the freckles up around my eyes as well. I can go in with a second layer, but I find that it gets really chunky. It's really difficult to build this up, so I really prefer not to. I don't mind if my scars are showing a little bit. I just want to even my skin tone out a little bit more. So this is what the foundation looks like on one side of my face. So this is the side with the foundation and the side without. So this is what I mean by the lack of coverage. You can see all of these scars here around my mouth. My mouth is not doing so well at the moment, not sure why. And then up you can see some of the hyperpigmentation here, and you can see some of the freckles around here as well, especially on my nose too. So the coverage is really light for me personally. So I'm going to do the other side of my face and I'm going to show you what the full face looks like. So this is the full face of product, and I'm sorry it's just started raining really heavily, so I hope you cannot hear that. So I've built up a little bit around my chin, but it's not really worked that well. And then this is what the other side looks like too. And this is what the skin looks like up close. So you can see some of the redness around my nose, scarring on the cheeks. You can still see a little bit of texture on my forehead. It's not super bad, but it doesn't really do that much for it. And then there's a little bit more coverage on that scarring, but it's not really done that much, and it kind of gives it a little bit more texture than I would like. But you can see that the colour actually isn't really that bad. It's slightly off in tone, but not enough to look terrible. And it's better to be a little bit peachy than it is to be a little bit pinky. So that is what it looks like without the exposure being really high. It's super dark in the background because it's raining and there's no sunlight. But you can see that the colour is slightly off, but it's really not so bad. So I'm going to go about my day. I'm going to check in before I go to work, and then after I go to work, before I go to dancing, and then at the end of the day after dancing. So I will talk to you guys soon. Okay, so the foundation has been on for 8 hours now. It is looking okay, and I apologize, the lighting is absolutely shocking. I'm turning the exposure down, but yeah, it's just like it's daylight, but it's so rainy today. The weather is absolutely miserable. So overall, my skin doesn't look bad at all. You can see my lipstick is wearing off. Yeah, you can see that I've got some nose grip marks from my glasses. Yep, that happens. But when we get a little bit closer, remember how I was saying that it doesn't build up nicely? That's what happens when I put on 2 layers, whereas on this side I didn't, and it looks fine. My nose looks a little bit shiny and it feels oily, but it doesn't look too bad. I would still consider this pretty good wear. So overall, I think that up to 8 to 9 hours it lasts fine. I don't really like to wear it for very much longer, but I'm going to be going to dancing. It's my Tuesday weekly regime, so I'm going to go to dancing, and then I'm going to come back with a ring light and show you what this foundation looks like after, oh my god, how many hours? Like 11 hours to 12 hours, yeah. Okay, so my makeup has been on for 11.5 hours. I have been at dancing, which is like not super intense, but like it's kind of like a very small amount of exercise. It's just ballroom dancing, so it's like kind of low-key, but like, yeah. So the foundation is looking very dewy. It's quite oily and it's starting to break up a little bit around my nose, especially where my glasses have been. That's pretty bad. But also on the tip of my nose as well. I think I must have like nicked it, like scratched it or something like that, because there's a chunk missing off the top there. Like, how bad is that? It does look passable, I would say, but I do look like sweaty or oily. It's kind of like dewy on the fence of being oily, I would say. It's still broken up around my chin and around my eyes. That really hasn't changed very much. And other than that, my T-zone just looks a bit oily. So the longevity really isn't that bad. I would say up to 9 hours, I'd be comfortable saying that it's got pretty good longevity. But after that, it just starts to get like, that nose part is just awful. I mean, like I can blend it in with my finger, but I didn't know it was there. And oh my gosh, now the top of my nose is terrible. So now there's like no foundation on the top of my nose. Oh my god, that's so bad. Oh well, just kind of blend it in. It's kind of like, yeah, no, there's a lot of oil on my nose, so instead of blending in, it's kind of just coming off onto my finger now. So would not recommend trying to blend it back in again. That didn't work. But that's pretty much it for my checkup. So this is now the final thoughts on the foundation. So overall, I think that this foundation is really interesting, and although it's not perfect, it's still quite a good foundation if you are on the olive skin tone side. The formula is okay. It can be a little bit hard to blend on my skin, and it does sort of like peel up and roll off if the skincare underneath does not match either. I find that the formula being a little bit of a thicker cream is okay to work with. For me, it works best using a beauty blender or a cushion puff rather than a brush, because I find that the brushes just make it really hard to distribute the cream because of its thicker texture, but overall it's pretty easy to apply. The shade range is okay. There are 20 shades in the range and they do go fairly light, so obviously it looks pretty good on me, but I still feel like the shade is a little bit more peachy than it is actually yellow for my skin specifically. And this is the lightest shade they do, so they don't go any lighter than this, which is a shame because it would be nice to have one lighter shade than that. The biggest downfall for me is actually the packaging of the product. It's just really like, it just feels really cheap. The pump doesn't work very well. It makes lots of noises and it's very like, it's hard to press down, like it goes down in like sort of stages. It's really bizarre. It's just not the nicest packaging, even though I do think it's pretty. Like I like the coppery coloured rose gold outer. I think it's nice. I like the airless pump. It's just that the actual pump itself is cheap. Or maybe mine's broken, I don't know. But overall, it is a nice foundation. It's just not a holy grail for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!